Ladies and gentlemen, one of the greatest gifts God has given us is discernment. Discernment is the ability to see beyond what is visible, to detect what is invisible, to sense what is hidden, and to recognize the forces that are at work behind the veil of human behavior. Too many of us walk through life blind, not realizing that some of the battles we face are not against flesh and blood, but against spiritual forces. There are people you encounter daily who do not come into your life to support you, but to sabotage you. There are people whose smiles are masks, whose hugs are chains, and whose conversations are spells meant to paralyze your destiny. These are witches. They may not ride on broomsticks or wear pointed hats, but they operate with an agenda of control, manipulation, and destruction. And if you are not aware, you will live oppressed, thinking your failure is your fault, when in fact it is the influence of those who have disguised themselves as friends. The first sign you are surrounded by witches is constant confusion in your mind. Confusion is not a natural state of the soul, it is a weapon. When you find yourself in the presence of certain people and suddenly you cannot think clearly, your decisions become clouded and your peace evaporates. It is not just personality clash, it is spiritual manipulation. Witches thrive in creating mental fog. They want you to doubt yourself, second guess your convictions, and lose your confidence. A clear mind is powerful. A confused mind is controllable. If every time you are with certain individuals you leave drained, uncertain, and questioning your worth, that is not ordinary. That is the environment of witchcraft. The second sign is diviz. Iron in relationships. A true friend protects unity, but a witch sows discord. They whisper into one ear and then into another. They create suspicion where there was trust, jealousy where there was love, and offense where there was peace. Suddenly, people who once stood with you turn against you, not because of truth, but because of a poisonous seed planted by someone working in darkness. When you notice that arguments arise mysteriously, when peace is stolen without cause, and when bonds are severed by invisible hands, it is not always natural. It is witchcraft. A witch cannot stand strong families, true friendships, or divine partnerships because unity multiplies strength. Division is their craft and isolation is their victory. The third sign is the draining of your spiritual energy. There are people who, after spending time with them, you feel exhausted without doing anything. They are not pouring into you, they are pulling from you. They are like spiritual leeches that feed on your joy, your enthusiasm, and your faith. Instead of inspiring you, they leave you depleted. Instead of pushing you higher, they drag you lower. This is not just negativity, it is spiritual feeding. Witches are drawn to light, not to enjoy it, but to extinguish it. If you notice that your fire goes out whenever certain individuals are around, you are in the presence of those who are feeding on your flame. The fourth sign is the presence of strange cycles in your life. Witchcraft often reveals itself in patterns that cannot be explained logically. You take one step forward and suddenly 2 steps back. Just when a breakthrough is about to come, something interferes. You feel progress slipping through your fingers like water. This is not just bad luck. It is the manipulation of unseen forces. If you constantly notice that your blessings are delayed, your efforts are sabotaged, or your dreams are attacked in the night, you are not just battling circumstances, you are battling witches. They create cycles of near success, cycles of failure, and cycles of frustration so that you never experience the fullness of your potential. The fifth sign is the manipulation of your emotions. Witches are masters of control, and they use guilt, fear, and shame to bind you. They want to control how you feel so they can control how you act. You will notice that whenever you try to set boundaries, they accuse you of being selfish. Whenever you stand for truth, they twist it to make you feel wrong. Whenever you walk in confidence, they use words to make you feel small. Their goal is to break your spirit, because a broken spirit is easy to dominate. If your joy disappears when certain people speak, if your confidence evaporates after their words, you are under emotional witchcraft. The sixth sign is the distortion of your dreams and visions. Dreams are not just pictures in your sleep. They are messages, instructions, and warnings from the spirit realm. When witches surround you, they invade your dreams. You begin to see nightmares, oppression, and strange encounters in your sleep. You wake up heavy, unable to pray, and unable to remember what you saw. All your visions in life become blurred. You once had clarity about your future, but now you cannot see clearly where you are going. Confusion enters your goals, your plans stall, and your faith weakens. When your dreams are under attack, your destiny is under attack. The seventh sign is the resistance of your progress. Whenever you try to rise, there is an invisible resistance. Whenever you try to move forward, unseen forces push back. People block opportunities without reason. Projects collapse without explanation. Every attempt at elevation meets mysterious opposition. This is not natural. Witches are threatened by growth. They want you stuck where you are because movement means freedom and freedom means influence. They resist your progress because your success breaks their power. If you feel like you are fighting battles that do not make sense, facing opposition without cause, it may not be people, it may be witches operating through people. Ladies and gentlemen, witches are not always strangers. Sometimes they are close, smiling, laughing, and sitting at your table. They may be in your circle, but not in your corner. They are experts in disguise, presenting themselves as helpers while secretly working against you. And if you do not discern, you will continue to embrace your enemy while rejecting your destiny. This is why discernment is critical. You must learn to judge people not by their words, but by their fruit. Do they bring peace or confusion? Do they add strength or drain energy? Do they build unity or sow division? Do they propel you forward or hold you back? The answers to these questions will reveal whether you are surrounded by friends or by witches. Now, when you recognize these signs, do not panic and do not fear. Fear is their weapon, but awareness is your shield. Once you see them, you take back your power. You stop entertaining confusion. You guard your relationships. You protect your energy. You break cycles. You guard your emotions. You reclaim your dreams. And you push through resistance. You realize that no witch, no matter how close, has authority over your destiny unless you hand it to them. And so the power is not in their hands, it is in yours. The presence of witches is not proof of your weakness, but proof of your significance. They do not fight what is empty, they fight what is valuable. If you are surrounded by witches, it means you carry something worth attacking. That should not discourage you. It should awaken you. Because what is on your life is greater than what is against your life. And once you know the signs, you will no longer live as prey, but as a victor, fully aware of who you are and what you carry. Ladies and gentlemen, let me take you deeper into this truth, because many people live their entire lives never realizing that the greatest battles they fight are not outside, but within the atmosphere they allow around them. You see, witches thrive in environments of ignorance. Where there is no knowledge, there is bondage. Where there is no light, darkness reigns. And the most dangerous thing about being surrounded by witches is not their power. It is your blindness to their presence. Because if you cannot identify what is influencing you, you will continue to cooperate with your own destruction. Ignorance is the devil's greatest weapon, but knowledge is your freedom. When you look back over your life, you can trace patterns that reveal the fingerprints of manipulation. Ask yourself, why is it that certain opportunities always slip away at the last moment? Why is it that you experience sudden heaviness when you were once filled with joy? Why do you find yourself battling the same cycles year after year as if you are walking in circles? This is not coincidence. Witches operate in cycles because cycles create prisons without walls. They make you live in repetition, repeating mistakes, repeating failures, repeating heartbreaks, until you begin to accept that it is just your life. But the truth is, it is not your life. It is witchcraft at work. And until you recognize it, you cannot break it. Another dimension of this influence is the war against your confidence. Confidence is the currency of destiny. Without confidence, you cannot lead, you cannot decide, and you cannot advance. So witches target your confidence. They attack your identity with subtle words. They plant suggestions in conversations that make you feel less than who you are. They ridicule your dreams under the mask of humor. They question your decisions until you start questioning yourself. Their goal is to cripple your belief in yourself, because a man or woman who doubts themselves cannot walk boldly into destiny. When you notice that your confidence is constantly under attack, understand that you are not dealing with ordinary people. You are dealing with witchcraft disguised as companionship. Let us also consider the atmosphere that follows them. Witches carry with them an aura, a heaviness, a spiritual climate. When they enter a room, something shifts. Peace evaporates, tension increases, and suddenly arguments arise without reason. Have you noticed that when certain individuals walk in, the energy changes? That is not by accident. They bring with them the weight of the spirit they serve. And if you are not alert, you will adapt to that heaviness as if it is normal. But you must train yourself to discern atmospheres. Pay attention to how you feel when someone enters. Do you feel uplifted or do you feel oppressed? Do you feel free or do you feel caged? The atmosphere reveals the spirit. Another tactic they use is delay. Delay is one of the most subtle weapons of witchcraft. They cannot stop you, but they can slow you down. They cannot kill your dream, but they can bury it under years of postponement. They create distractions, interruptions, and unnecessary battles to consume your time. Before you know it, what should have taken 1 year takes 10. Delay is dangerous because it kills silently. It does not shout, it whispers. It makes you believe you have time while time is slipping away. And the longer you wait, the weaker your faith becomes. Recognize this. Every unnecessary delay in your life may be more than circumstance. It may be the influence of witches working to rob you of your appointed season. You must also understand that witches feed on your silence in the wrong areas. When you do not confront, when you do not set boundaries, when you do not speak truth, they grow stronger. Silence can be wisdom, but silence can also be bondage. When you keep quiet in the face of manipulation, you empower the manipulator. When you tolerate the draining of your energy, you permit it. Witches thrive where there is no resistance. They are bold in the presence of passivity. And this is why many remain oppressed, not because they lack power, but because they lack confrontation. You must reach a point where you say, no more. You will not drain me. You will not confuse me. You will not delay me. And you will not control me. That declaration alone begins to dismantle their influence. Another sign you are surrounded by witches is the battle over your words. Words are spirit. Words create, words build, and words destroy. Witches know the power of words, so they twist them. They misinterpret your statements. They spread rumors. They take what you said in private and distort it in public. Suddenly you are misunderstood. Your reputation is attacked and your influence is weakened. This is not just gossip. It is witchcraft. When words are used as weapons against you, when lies rise up like arrows in the dark, know that this is not ordinary. They are trying to silence your voice because your voice carries authority. If you ever wonder why certain people are obsessed with misrepresenting you, it is because witches fear the power of your words. They also operate heavily in dreams. Pay attention to your night encounters. Dreams are not just subconscious images. They are portals of revelation. Witches know this, so they invade the night. They attack in sleep, planting fear, confusion, and strange encounters. Some wake up with exhaustion because they fought all night in the spirit. Others wake up forgetting their dreams as if something erased them. Dreams are stolen because instructions are stolen. Revelation is stolen. The enemy knows that if you receive clarity in your dreams, you will walk boldly in life, so they cloud your nights to keep you ignorant in the day. This is why many people live without direction, because their night is under siege. And let me tell you this truth. Witches thrive in proximity. They need closeness to be effective. They want to be in your circle, near your confidence, and within your trust. They do not always attack from afar. They infiltrate from within. This is why betrayal is their favorite tool. They want to sit at your table, eat your bread, and then stab your back. That is why you must guard your inner circle. Not everyone who claps for you is for you. Not everyone who says, I love you, means it. Not everyone who walks with you is walking in the same direction. Test the spirit of those around you, because your destiny cannot afford unguarded proximity. Witches also thrive on secrecy. They hate exposure. The moment they are revealed, their power weakens. This is why discernment and wisdom are your weapons. When you discern, you shine a light. And when you shine a light, darkness flees. Their influence is sustained by your ignorance, but once you call it what it is, their power begins to crumble. Never fear exposure, because truth is your greatest weapon. A revealed witch is a powerless witch. And let me go further. Witches are not just individuals. They can operate through systems, environments, and cultures. Anything that manipulates, controls, and resists your progress carries the spirit of witchcraft. Sometimes it is not just a person, but a system designed to suppress you, to keep you in bondage, to rob you of your freedom. You must recognize that witchcraft is broader than personalities. It is the spirit of control at work in every sphere of life. Now let me remind you of this. Being surrounded by witches is not a sign that you are cursed. It is a sign that you are chosen. Witches do not waste time on those with no purpose. They attack because there is something in you that threatens their kingdom. They see your potential even before you see it yourself. They discern your light before you fully walk in it. Their attacks are a reflection of your significance. That should not break you. It should build you. Because if the enemy invests so much in stopping you, it means heaven has invested even more in empowering you. So the question is not whether you are surrounded. The question is, do you recognize the signs? Do you see the manipulation for what it is? Do you have the courage to confront, to separate, to guard, and to rise? Because awareness is the first step to victory. Once you know, you are no longer a victim. Once you discern, you are no longer blind. And once you confront, you are no longer bound. Ladies and gentlemen, when you begin to recognize the signs, you start to understand that life is not just physical, it is deeply spiritual. What you see with your eyes is only a fraction of what truly exists. Behind every delay, behind every resistance, behind every attack on your mind and your peace, there is often a spiritual strategy designed to weaken your potential. And if you only fight in the natural, you will remain exhausted without ever solving the root. Witches do not waste their time throwing stones at empty houses. They only attack where there is treasure, where there is destiny, and where there is impact. If you feel surrounded, it is because you carry something valuable that threatens the forces of darkness. One of the most overlooked ways they operate is through distraction. A witch knows that if they cannot stop you, they can distract you. They flood your life with trivial conversations, unnecessary arguments, and unproductive habits. They keep your eyes fixed on small battles so you never engage in the great war of your destiny. Distraction is more dangerous than destruction because destruction is obvious, but distraction is silent. It eats your time, it eats your focus, and it steals your years without you noticing. Many people are not defeated because they are weak. They are defeated because they are distracted. If you want to know whether witches are around you, look at how much of your energy is consumed by things that do not matter. Another powerful sign is the sudden appearance of fear that has no foundation. Fear is the currency of witchcraft. They use it to paralyze, to immobilize, to cage the strong so they never act. You will notice that in the presence of certain people or in certain environments, fear grips your heart. You were once bold about your dreams, but now you hesitate. You once spoke freely, but now you silence yourself. You once took steps with courage, but now you second-guess every move. That is not natural. It is witchcraft at work. Fear is not an emotion to be entertained. It is a spirit to be resisted. When you allow fear to dictate your choices, you hand over the pen of your destiny to the enemy. Another indicator is when your resources seem to vanish mysteriously. Money comes into your hands but disappears without reason. Opportunities present themselves but collapse without explanation. You find yourself working harder than ever but producing less than ever. Witches often attack provision because provision fuels vision. If they can empty your hands, they can slow your journey. If they can drain your finances, they can keep you in survival mode, never thriving, never building, never advancing. Pay attention when your resources are constantly leaking, when everything you touch seems to crumble, when you are always close to breakthrough but never entering it. That is not coincidence, that is manipulation. You must also recognize the subtle way they target your relationships. Relationships are divine connectors. The right connection can propel you years ahead, while the wrong connection can keep you years behind. Witches specialize in corrupting relationships that were meant to bless you. They whisper lies into ears, they create suspicion, they plant offense, and suddenly those who were destined to help you are now distant. Pay attention when key relationships start breaking without reason. Pay attention when misunderstanding becomes constant, when trust disappears overnight, and when those who once loved you now avoid you. That is not just human weakness, it is a spiritual plot to separate you from your helpers. Another layer of their strategy is heaviness. Heaviness is not simply tiredness. It is spiritual weight pressing down on your soul. You wake up weary even when you have rested. You feel hopeless even when nothing has gone wrong. You carry discouragement like a cloak, unable to shake it off. That heaviness is not natural. It is projected. Witches use heaviness to kill your enthusiasm because enthusiasm is energy. If they can rob you of energy, they can rob you of momentum. And if they can rob you of momentum, they can keep you stuck in cycles of inactivity. Heaviness makes you procrastinate, makes you doubt, and makes you settle. But heaviness is not the truth. It is a tactic. Let us also uncover how they work through offense. Offense is a trap that poisons your heart. Witches know that if they can plant offense in you, they can disconnect you from divine flow. You stop listening, you stop receiving, you stop loving, and you shut your spirit down. Offense makes you see enemies in friends and friends in enemies. It distorts your vision until you cannot recognize what God placed in your path. If you notice that you are constantly offended, constantly sensitive, constantly bitter, look deeper. Witches stir offense because they know offense is self-sabotage. You may think you are protecting yourself, but in reality, you are isolating yourself from the very people who carry keys to your next level. Another strategy is confusion in direction. When witches surround you, you find it difficult to make decisions. You question every choice. You start projects and abandon them. You lose clarity about your future. Confusion keeps you busy but never productive. You move in circles instead of moving forward. And because confusion feels like indecision, you blame yourself, never realizing that your mind is under attack. When your vision becomes blurred, when you cannot see where you are going, when your goals seem distant and undefined, it is a sign that witches are clouding your direction. Clarity is freedom, but confusion is bondage. You must also recognize the battles over your health. Witches attack the body because the body is the temple through which destiny is fulfilled. Strange illnesses, unexplained pain, sudden weakness, these can be signs of witchcraft at work. Not every sickness is natural. Some afflictions are designed to slow you down, to rob you of strength, to consume your resources, and to distract you from your purpose. When you notice repeated health challenges that doctors cannot explain, or recurring afflictions that arise at critical seasons of your life, discern carefully. Some battles are not just physical, they are spiritual in origin. Another thing to watch is isolation. Witches love to separate you from wise counsel. They want you alone, disconnected and vulnerable. They make you feel that no one understands you, no one supports you, no one is with you. They magnify your problems until you withdraw, and in that isolation, they intensify their influence. Pay attention when you begin to avoid gatherings, avoid mentors, avoid community. Pay attention when you feel drawn into secrecy, into silence, into loneliness. Isolation is not always natural. It is often engineered so that you can be manipulated without resistance. And let us not forget the way they manipulate time. Witches know that destiny is fulfilled in time, so they distort your use of it. You waste hours on unproductive things, you delay important steps, and you procrastinate opportunities until they expire. You live reactive instead of proactive, responding to problems instead of creating progress. When you look back and realize years have passed, but little has changed, know that time theft is at work. The enemy does not always need to kill you to stop you. He just needs to waste your years until your season passes. But here's the deeper truth. Their influence is only effective where you allow it. Witches cannot control a mind that is alert. They cannot drain a spirit that is guarded. They cannot manipulate a soul that is rooted in truth. The danger is not in their presence, but in your ignorance. Once you begin to see, once you begin to discern, once you begin to name what is happening around you, their power weakens. The moment you take back authority over your mind, your emotions, your time, and your energy, the chains they tried to place on you begin to break. Ladies and gentlemen, being surrounded by witches is not the end of your story. It is the evidence of your significance. The more you are attacked, the more you must realize what you carry. The more opposition you face, the clearer it becomes that your destiny is not ordinary. No thief breaks into an empty house. No enemy fights what has no value. If you are surrounded, it is because heaven has deposited something in you that hell cannot afford to ignore. And once you recognize that truth, you stop living in fear and start living in power. Ladies and gentlemen, let me go even deeper, because there is a dimension to this reality that many never confront. When you are surrounded by witches, you are not just in the presence of people, you are in the presence of an agenda. The agenda is always the same: to stop you, to silence you, to shrink you, and to sabotage what you were born to carry. They are not after your house. They are not after your car. They are not after your job. They are after your influence, your purpose, your assignment. Because once they can kill the reason you were born, everything else will collapse on its own. That is why you must be vigilant. The battle is not over things. It is over destiny. One of the greatest weapons they use is intimidation. Intimidation is designed to make you small in your own eye. S. If they can convince you that you are powerless, they do not need to fight you. You will destroy yourself. You will shrink back from opportunities. You will silence yourself in rooms where your voice is needed. You will abandon projects because you believe you are unqualified. Intimidation makes giants feel like grasshoppers. And when you see yourself as small, you surrender your authority. That is how witches win. Not because they are greater, but because they manipulate how you see yourself. When you notice that your confidence disappears in the presence of certain people, discern it. That is not humility. That is intimidation working through witchcraft. Another sign is the constant attack on your peace. Peace is not just the absence of noise. Peace is the atmosphere of power. When you are at peace, you can think clearly, you can act wisely, and you can discern accurately. Witches disrupt peace because confusion is their atmosphere. Have you noticed that when certain people speak, peace leaves the room? Their words carry tension, their presence carries unease, their spirit carries conflict. Peace is your compass, and when it disappears, it is a signal that something is wrong. Do not ignore the disturbance of your peace. It is the whisper of discernment telling you that manipulation is near. They also use temptation as a subtle weapon. Witches understand that if they cannot break you externally, they will lure you internally. They tempt you with habits, relationships, and desires that seem harmless but are designed to weaken you. They push you toward wrong appetites because appetite determines direction. If they can control your appetite, they can control your destiny. Look carefully at the temptations that arise around you, especially when you are close to breakthrough. Those sudden distractions, those subtle compromises, those easy shortcuts, they are not random. They are traps designed to shift your focus away from the path of purpose. Another sign is the distortion of your identity. Witches attack identity because identity is the foundation of authority. If you do not know who you are, you will live below your potential. They surround you with voices that constantly compare you to others, constantly highlight your weaknesses, constantly remind you of your past. They want you insecure because insecurity breeds dependence, and dependence is control. The moment you start questioning who you are, you begin to surrender your authority. This is why so many people live as shadows of themselves, carrying gifts they never use, dreams they never pursue, and potential they never maximize. Their identity has been hijacked by witchcraft working through words and perceptions. Another way you know you are surrounded is when your vision begins to feel heavy. Vision is supposed to inspire, to energize, to pull you forward. But when witches attack, your vision feels like a burden. What once excited you now discourages you. What once gave you life now drains you. You look at your future and see impossibility instead of opportunity. That heaviness over vision is not natural. It is witchcraft. Because if they can make you abandon your vision, they do not need to fight you. You will quit on your own. They turn the fire of your purpose into ashes of frustration. And do not miss this. Witches are attracted to potential. They appear when you are about to rise, when doors are about to open, when opportunities are about to unfold. They are always present in seasons of transition. That is why many people experience the greatest battles just before breakthrough. If you are in a season of unusual warfare, unusual attacks, unusual resistance, do not despair. It is a sign that you are close to something significant. They would not fight so hard if you were not about to rise higher. The battle is often the loudest at the edge of victory. Another layer is the war over your words. Words are seeds, and witches know that if they can corrupt your confession, they can corrupt your harvest. They provoke you to speak fear, doubt, and negativity. They drain you until you curse your own life with your tongue. They manipulate situations until you declare failure before you even begin. And because words are spiritual, what you declare begins to manifest. Witches cannot create, but they can manipulate you to use your own words against yourself. If you notice that your language shifts toward despair, hopelessness, and negativity in certain environments, understand that this is not just mood, it is influence. Another sign is the attack on your memory. Witches do not only want to confuse your future, they also want to distort your past. They remind you of failures while erasing victories. They magnify mistakes while minimizing progress. Suddenly you forget how far you have come, how much you have overcome, and how much grace has carried you. You only see your weaknesses, never your strength. This distorted memory is designed to strip you of gratitude because gratitude fuels faith. If you forget what has been done for you, you will not believe for what is ahead of you. And so witches manipulate your memory to keep you in cycles of discouragement. They also operate through weariness. Weariness is not just being tired in body, it is exhaustion in soul. It is the feeling that nothing is working, that there is no point in trying, that giving up would be easier than pressing on. Witches love to whisper weariness into your spirit because weary hearts stop fighting. And once you stop fighting, they do not need to attack. You will surrender your ground. If you notice an unusual desire to quit, unusual tiredness in your assignments, unusual frustration in your purpose, discern carefully. Weariness is one of their sharp pest arrows. And perhaps one of the most dangerous signs is the dulling of your spiritual sensitivity. Witches do not mind you being busy, they mind you being alert. They flood your life with noise, with distractions, with endless activities, so that you no longer hear the whisper of discernment. You stop praying, you stop reflecting, you stop listening, your inner compass goes silent, and you begin to live purely by sight. Once your spirit is dull, they can operate freely around you. This is why many live under witchcraft without ever realizing it, because their spiritual senses have been numbed. Ladies and gentlemen, you must awaken to these realities. Witches do not always declare themselves. They are subtle, they are strategic, and they are patient. They can smile while destroying, they can laugh while manipulating, they can serve while sabotaging. But once you know the signs, you cannot be deceived. Once you recognize the patterns, you cannot be trapped. Awareness is your weapon, discernment is your shield, and truth is your freedom. The presence of witches is not the problem, the absence of discernment is. Because when you can see clearly, when you can name what is happening, when you can expose their agenda, you strip them of power